So, welcome to episode 5 of The Curse of Melanie's Grave. In this episode, I wanted to talk about the budget of the film. So, it's not really a problem as such that I'm going to talk about. It's just because a lot of people will be wondering, well, how do you make a feature film with very little money? If you've got no money, like small independent production, which is what Melanie's Grave was. So just to kind of clarify, there was 2 versions of Melanie's Grave. So we shot the original version in 2015 and then we reshot the entire film again in 2016. So for the first version of that film, I borrowed £3,000 from my parents and I shot that entire film. This was just production, this is not post-production. I shot that entire film on slightly over £3,000. And then when we did the reshoot like a year later, I shot that film with £8,000. So then that went up to £14,000 with post-production. But this wasn't a big chunk of money that was there from the start of production. And incidentally, I paid for every single penny of that, the second production. All came out of my pocket. But it wasn't a big lump sum that I already had. So I had a certain amount when we started production, and it was just money that I was saving up from work, etc. And by the end of the film, and I think I ended up paying the actors kind of a lot of their fees after we'd finished shooting, kind of weeks and weeks kind of after. So I wasn't paying them all off at the same time, because I didn't have the full amounts to be able to pay like everyone off at the same time. So I was paying a certain amount of actors or crew off kind of in a couple of weeks after, and then it was like a few weeks after that when I kind of, getting paid again from work. So it wasn't a big lump sum. And I also I cashed in 2 small insurance policies that I had much later in the post-production process to finish off getting the film kind of done, because there was a lot of problems in post-production, and I'm going to go into all of those problems in another video. But in total to date, it's cost me around £14,000 for the second version of the film. So if you include the first version, that would be £17,000 that I've put into making this production, which has to date taken 10 years to get from script to release date, which will be this September. So look out for the film when it comes out. So you might be thinking, well, so if you're not familiar with film production and what the budget actually pays for, I'm just going to give you a little breakdown of what the things that I spent the money on. So a lot of it went on catering. So I was like, it was my mother that was doing the catering, so I didn't pay my mother anything to do that. She did it for free. But I paid for all of the ingredients that went into the meals, and she was making hot meals for lunches, and then we were having mostly kind of sandwiches for at tea time. So a lot of the money went into catering, and also on this particular version of the film, also paid the cast and crew some small fees as well as their travel expenses. I also had to buy, even though the actors wore their own clothing for their individual costumes, there was some elements of costume that I had to purchase because those actors didn't have what I wanted for those characters. There was office supplies, like stationery, like printer paper, because I was printing out kind of call sheets and schedules and contracts, a lot of which you would kind of generally do now, just kind of posting to someone digitally, whereas back then, we're talking like it was 8 years ago when we shot this second version. So a lot of it was kind of just on paper. We were printing stuff out, so we had all of those, blah blah blah, and obviously you've got to print out your contracts to be able to sign them anyway. So there was that. We also had insurance for the film. Now, when I approached various kind of insurance companies to get quotes, and I obviously went with the cheapest one, and I only wanted to get out like production insurance to cover the period that we were going to be shooting. But when I spoke to the insurance broker, I said, well, it's going to be the same for like a year's insurance. So I ended up getting a year's insurance, which meant that if I did any other productions within that year, it would still be covered by that same insurance. So I ended up getting a year's worth of insurance for what would have been the same amount for 2, 3, 4 weeks or whatever. So did that. Also, there was a few props that we had to buy that was specific to the film. Wasn't a lot of props that we had to buy, but there was, you know, 1 or 2 little things. And there was lots of miscellaneous things like first aid kit. There was batteries for like torches for some of the lights that we had. We had to use, we were battery operated, so there was we had a lot of batteries to buy. There was things like dust sheets, which I can't even remember what we used them for. I think it might have been when we were putting blood onto various actors. We had dust sheets on the floor to stop the blood going on the floor. Bin bags for rubbish. Just things that you wouldn't normally kind of think that you would need for a film production. There was clipboards for, I mean, I had a clipboard with paperwork on when I was on site, on set, you know. There was makeup, so I think I paid for the makeup artist's makeup that she would have been using throughout the film. And there was a tiny little prosthetic kind of bullet hole that we had. It was about year size, that we had for Rob's leg, because he'd been shot in the leg. So we had that little prosthetic, which didn't cost a lot of money. But it's all these little things that kind of add up and add to your budget. And obviously we needed hard drives to be able to put the rushes on, and also to be able to edit on. So I think we had a couple of hard drives. I think I ended up getting the biggest kind of hard drives that I could afford. So I think I ended up with 6, 7, 8 terabyte kind of hard drives. There was also things like hire. So we hired, we had an external location in a woodland in the middle of nowhere, and then obviously going to the loo is going to be problematic in the middle of the woods. So we hired a portaloo. There was a little car park kind of near the woods where we were staying, which was owned by the owner of the woodland. So we managed to get a portaloo kind of brought and put onto site. And another thing that we had to pay for was we ended up renting a lens for the camera to give us a bit more range with the lenses. So we had to pay for a lens rental for, I think we only used it for a few days where we were going to do these specific shots. So there was a lot of like different things that you wouldn't really expect you wouldn't really think about that you would need for a film production, like all the bin bags for rubbish and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that is kind of the main budget of the film, what the money went on. And I understand, obviously, if you've got no money, it's like, well, how do you get people to come and work on a feature film when getting them to commit for like 2, 3, 4 weeks, or however long your production's going to be, to work for like virtually nothing. And yeah, it is hard, and it is difficult, and you're not going to get big kind of actors who have done lots of TV work and film work. You're not going to get those people because they're working and they're earning a living doing that, and they don't have day jobs. Whereas the actors that you are going to end up getting on this particular level are actors that are going to have day jobs, and they're going to have to take time off work to do your production. So they do expect to get paid, but they will, if they're desperate enough to, and I don't say that in a negative way, if they're desperate enough to kind of get showreel material, or get experience of working on films to build up their portfolio on their CV, they are going to want to be on your production, even though you might be paying them very little, or even if you're just paying them travel expenses and feeding them, which is the bare minimum you should be doing. because they shouldn't be out of pocket. So you can get people to come and be in your film, also crew members who are also again trying to build up their CVs and their experience. They will come and do these particular roles. You might not get the best experienced people working on your film, but they will be hopefully enthusiastic because they want to get that experience as well. So you can get people to work on your film, but you know, you need to keep your expectations really kind of down there, and don't expect people who a camera guy if they come on and like know like everything about how like shots and compositions and all that. Yeah, they will know the basics, but they won't have the experience to kind of draw on from other films that they've been on a lot of the time. So you are gonna be limited as to what you can achieve, but that's not to say that you can't achieve big things with your film. I think we'll call it a day with that episode. I will go into like some of the elements I've touched on in the film there, like various production like kind of techniques and what have you with the cameras and all that kind of stuff, and shots and all that kind of, and I'll talk about some of the shots that I did in the film as well in later videos. But I think we'll call it a day for this video. So if you want to see more of these videos and the content that I'm making kind of behind the scenes and the problems that I had with making this particular film and other films as well, then please like, share, follow, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.